Hey, Sens fans, welcome to season 5, episode 5 of the Senstennial Podcast. We're finally back with another episode. We're going to recap the first 4 home games that the Ottawa Senators have had this season. Then we're going to touch on Shane Pinto and the update there. Keep waiting for that guy. Then we're going to talk about the Zub injury and JBD being recalled to the Sens, and finally finish off with talking about Craig Anderson retiring as an Ottawa Senator and kind of if we think maybe he's Ring of Honor material or whether he's jersey retirement material. So we'll touch on all that today, but we're going to kick things off talking about the last few home games. The Sens picked up 3 wins, most of them in convincing fashion, and then finished off with a big L against the Detroit Red Wings. Not the nicest way to come close to closing out a home stand, but that's where we are. So I'll pass it off to Matt first. And what did you think about Ottawa's homestand through the first 4?
Well, Matt, I was pretty excited about it. Truthfully, I thought they've played a lot of really good hockey. I thought the D was really strong. We've seen that with the NHL Edge app, which just kind of released today, and it's showed some more advanced analytics that they're tracking. But I think what's in everybody's mind right now is the game against Detroit. And that was a bit of a mess. I mean, box score aside, you know, you don't want your starting goalie that you just paid a lot of money to give up that many goals on. I believe it was like 16 shots. Not a great showing for him. Obviously, Artem Zub was out of the lineup, and then JBD was recalled, and then the lines for the D just kind of went to hell in a handbasket. He just said, "Well, I'm going to do whatever I want out there," and he did. He definitely did. And aside from like some defensive lapses and so on, they still did outplay Detroit. And it's hard to be upset about that when you get goalied, so to speak. We've seen it happen to the Senators prior, but I think it's way worse because a former Ottawa Senator was on Detroit, and there was booing and it was exciting, and it's always good to have a villain in hockey, but in this scenario it was a game that Ottawa fans and Ottawa themselves really wanted to win. Brady came out after saying nobody was ready for this game, and I appreciate him coming out and saying that, but it's game 5 of the season, and you should have been ready. Like it's an afternoon game, like it was a sellout. Just be ready. Like it shouldn't be that hard. But all that aside, I felt like our forward core has been playing quite well, aside from the obvious Detroit game. And one of those things that I've noticed is Tim Stützle has not like dominated a game, and he still has 6 points. So it's just like that's what he does. Even when he plays crappy, he's putting up points. So um, yeah, it's been an interesting couple of games, but there's a lot more positive than negatives.
Yeah, and I think for me, that's the main takeaway. Like people are still harping on DJ's system. I think I've actually noticed some pretty noticeable differences this year. The team is sometimes still like dumping and chasing the puck, mostly for line changes, or when they have their fourth line on, they'll do that and go hard on the forecheck. I'm fine with that. It seems like with their top 3 lines, though, it's more of like a possession style of system where they're entering the zone with control and then trying to set up plays that way. And I like that style more, especially for how deep their forward core is. And once they eventually add Shane Pinto, which we'll get to next, but once they do that, the forward depth will really be solid, I think, and we'll see some improvement there. And speaking of players who have decent amount of points through 5 games, look at Jake Sanderson there. He had 4 goals in like 77 games last season. He's already at 3 this season through 5 games. So Certainly showing that he deserved that long-term contract that doesn't even kick in till next season. So
Wasn't that ESPN's projected number of goals for him too? Like,
yeah, like 16 points or something
yeah, it
ridiculous,
was
but
pathetic.
it's ESPN, so
ESPN talking about hockey,
yeah.
things that just don't make sense.
Bennett, do you want to chime in on the game recap discourse?
I would love to. First of all, starting with Sanderson, just because you brought him up, he has absolutely been, for me, probably the standout performer this season. You mentioned that guys like Timmy and Brady, they've got points in the board and they've looked good at times, but neither of them, because we've seen it, that both of those guys have another level. But what we're seeing from Sanderson is a level that he never hit last year. And he's hitting it right out of the gate, which is really impressive to see. He's playing a lot more confidently in the opposition end while still doing all of the good things defensively that he was already doing last season. We've seen him quarterbacking one of the power play units and looking extremely comfortable while doing it. He's taking shots, he's scoring goals, and he's doing it all as a sophomore and looking even more poised and confident than he was last season. So yeah, I mean that contract is absolutely looking better every single day. It's fantastic. I tweeted at one point during Saturday's game before the wheels came off that they can just write Sanderson's name on the Norris Trophy right now. I expect, because it's the Norris Trophy and the way that they award that thing, people have already decided that it's Quinn Hughes's turn to win that this year. But I think Sanderson, he if he keeps it up and he continues playing like this, he could work his way into that conversation, which is incredible. Other than that, there's been a lot of positives, with the caveat that we played some very weak teams for a few games there. Philadelphia and Washington are very poor. Tampa is missing their starting goalie, and they basically don't have any other halfway decent goalies in their system. So they were kind of easy prey. And then unfortunately, in the much anticipated DeBrincat grudge match game on Saturday afternoon, the Sens started really strong and then fell flat. And part of why they fell flat was Korpisalo getting lit up, which you don't like to see. He has not been very impressive since joining the team. Him and Forsberg, the Sens have as a team like a pretty respectable save percentage right now. But what's happening is that Forsberg and Korpisalo are canceling each other out. Forsberg is rocking 2-0 with a 1.5 goals against and a save percentage of 9.33. Korpisalo 1-2 with a 4 goals against and a save percentage of 8.65. He's not looked convincing to me in any of his games. There were points in the game against Detroit where he looked kind of sharp, but then, the Sens would dominate for 10 minutes and Detroit wouldn't have a shot. And then they'd score in the first shot that they got after that period. And you really hate to see that because it sucks all the momentum out of what the forwards and defense have been doing to drive play in our favor. And then when the other team gets like an odd man rush, or not even an odd man rush, just get any possession in the other team's zone and they immediately score off of it, it really takes the wind out of the sails, both for fans and you imagine for the players on the ice. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes. I think that my take that I had before the start of the season that was a poor acquisition and that he could be a problem for the Sens this season is so far looking correct. But I would prefer to be proven wrong as the season
What
goes
the
on.
heck, Benny? He's played 3 games, my guy. But anyway, I was going to comment on the goalie situation.
Well, I mean, just hang on for a second. Matt was just saying a moment ago that, not being awake by game 5 is no excuse that Brady used. And I agree. I mean, it's, you can only do what you can with the performances that are available to you. And, we're heaping praise on guys that have looked good for 5 games. We're justified in, heaping scorn on people that have looked bad for 5 games. And, I'm happy to change my opinion as the season goes on, but you can only react to what's in front of you.
So here's where I stand on Korpisalo. So first of all, I think Forsberg's done a phenomenal job, and I'm happy that the Sens stuck with him and gave him a chance this season. I think he's deserved it. He's always been, over the last few seasons, despite missing games, like he's always looked like Ottawa's number 1, even with the rotation of goalies they've had. With Korpisalo, you look at the first game of the season, Ottawa got dominated. They allowed 45 shots on net. And if you look at the total number of shots that Forsberg has faced in his first 2 games, it's 45. Korpisalo faced that in his first start of 3 games. So, you look at that, he got shelled. Yes, there was that one goal he allowed we talked about where he reached across and let it in, and that looked rough. That shouldn't have happened, but otherwise, I think considering he got shelled against a cup contending team this year, I'm not going to hold that one against him. Now he gets the win against Tampa Bay, no problems there, good save percentage. I think then when you look at the game versus Detroit, there were so many power plays, and Detroit has a deadly power play. And Ottawa's PK, which actually was good going into the game, just didn't show up. And you look at that one sequence where Detroit was up 2-1 and Ottawa was on the penalty kill. And I think Korpisalo saved like 3 shots in tight that were all like grade A scoring chances. And he saved all 3 of them. But then it was the 4th grade A scoring chance that finally he allowed. And so for me, it's like he was really trying to hang the team in there, and the team was giving him no coverage. And at that point, you're in the NHL. Goals are going to happen. Players are going to get their opportunities and take advantage of them. And the Sens have been really good at limiting the shots against, but they still are allowing high danger chances against when they do allow a shot against. Some of the time it's like Chychrun and Chabot having a defensive breakdown that leads to, a 2-on-1 rush or a 3-on-2 or what have you. Sometimes it's just a guy on the penalty kill, not having his eyes on a guy. But I think Detroit scored like 3 power play goals against Ottawa.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely worth noting that they have taken 6 penalties a game for the entirety of this season so far.
Yeah.
And it's guys that should know better. It's been very frustrating, and it takes the wind out of the sails. And I'll comment on the goaltending situation, and Matt, you can finish your point.
Yeah.
But I would say like I'm probably somewhere in the middle between the both of you. The Tampa game, I felt he had a very good game. The Carolina game, I thought he kept the team in there. But the fact of the matter is you can't have a stinker in 3 games. And I still fully believe he's going to bounce back, especially considering we were missing one of our top 4 defensemen who brings a little more stability to our penalty kill. And it's just it was a very frustrating situation for them to just continuously go on the PK, especially against currently the league's leader in power plays. So I find I'm going to fit in between you guys on this debate, but as I have said as well, like Forsberg is Mr. Consistent.
Yeah.
And like tandeming these guys and playing the hot hand, it's going to work either way. But yes, Matt, please continue.
My point was so close to being done. It's okay. all I was going to say is what we asked for in the offseason is, can we get above 900 goaltending? Like, can we get some consistent, above 900? Like, let's see some of that. And so far through the 3 games he started, Korpisalo at 5-on-5 has above a 900 save percentage. So it's frustrating because I think most of those goals against, because they're happening when Ottawa is down a player, it makes it look more egregious, especially when against Detroit, I think they only allowed 23 or 24 shots. So even if your goalie allows, 2 goals on high danger chances, then still their save percentage looks rather than like really good. Sure. So I think the problem this season is going to be like, if Ottawa's goalies are only getting like 20 odd shots against, because they basically through 4 of the 5 games this season only faced like 20 to 25 shots, then how are those save percentages going to be reflected? And obviously Forsberg has through 2 games had an amazing save percentage. So, now it's like up to Korpisalo to show he can do the same. And I think he can. There's been a lot of like promising things I've seen in his game. It's just when you're letting a goalie out to dry, and they did that against Carolina. They did that on the penalty kill against Detroit. I think that's what's like frustrating. And so I think when the team actually has a good game in front of Korpisalo and isn't taking penalties every 3 minutes, then hopefully Korpisalo will shine and he won't get dumped on as much. That said, I can appreciate where you're coming from, Bennett. And I also will be concerned if through 10, 15 starts this season, like I'll say 10, if through 10 starts this season, he's still a below 900 save percentage overall, I will be worried for sure. But for now, I'm not gonna be too worried because the Sens have had two shite games essentially in front of him through five. So that's where I stand on it. But I know I've rambled too long, so if you want, I can let you guys get concluding thoughts in on this if you have any, or I can move on to our next topic.
I think the only thing I would add to end this on a positive note and reiterate what Nate was saying is that, you know, the Sens' best players haven't even totally showed up yet, and we're 3-2. That's pretty good. I mean, like, you know, like our blue line has been very impressive. Like for the most part, like we're going to talk about the Zub absence in a moment and the impact that has. But generally speaking, you know, we're so excited to see our, you know, glittering, you know, defense pairings of our dreams of, you know, like Shabbat and Chikrin and Zub and Sanderson, and they were delivering for the first four games or so. That was looking really, really strong. And you know, Stutzla, Brady, you know, Giroux have not even hit the heights yet that we know that they're capable of, and they're still, you know, point per game players or above point per game players. That's good. You know, we know these guys have another level, and when they hit that, and if and when we can sort out what's going on with Pinto and, you know, figure out what our forward depth is going to look like going forward, I think there's a lot of things to look forward to there.
Well, I'm going to throw it back to you, Bennett, because I want the latest and greatest on the Shane Pinto situation. And what update do you have for us there?
Yeah, this is my hashtag insider moment. I bring to you forbidden knowledge from the TSN, you know, first period panel segment that everyone had watched. So I'm really coming in with like the, you know, with like the behind the scenes look here. But yeah, Garriock mentioned on Saturday that he suspects there may be a resolution to the Pinto contract situation this week, and that the resolution might include a trade of Pinto, not just, you know, a trade to accommodate Pinto. Obviously, this has elicited a whole lot of different reactions from people heading into the week that follows. I think I'm of a couple of different minds on the situation. I think first and foremost, it has to be said that, like, if this situation ends, and obviously we're speculating right now, but if it ends with Pinto being traded for assets or something in order to make our cap situation work, that in and of itself would not be like terrible. But the problem is that, like, this is like an issue of like Dorian's own making, because, you know, he didn't settle business in the order that I think fans would have expected him to settle business. He went out shopping for a luxury player like Tarasenko, who's actually looked pretty good. I'm not knocking Tarasenko here. You know, he's tied for the lead in points on the team so far, and he's looked pretty sharp on that third line and on the power play. But he's a luxury player. You know, $5 million a year for like a, you know, a veteran sniper is, you know, would have been kind of like something that you do at the end after you've extended your young players to need extensions and you've shored up your defense pairings. That's like the last thing that you do. And I think what's frustrating is that you saw Hamonic and McEwen get deals, guys that I think many Senators fans wouldn't want on the team no matter what they cost, get deals before Pinto gets a deal. And you saw Tarasenko get a deal when it was clear that, like, you could not accommodate that and sign Pinto without having to change something. And it's like, why would you push yourself into a situation where you're over the cap when you need to sign one of your players? Because now you've given the other teams leverage against you, and now they're asking for sweeteners like a first round pick to take a player off your hands to make it work. And like, you wouldn't have been in that same situation if you dealt with Pinto first. And then, you know, if you wanted to sign a guy like Tarasenko, you could have thought about whether you wanted to move somebody or not sign guys like Hamonic and McEwen. It's just like, it just seems very amateur the way that it's been handled. And it's like, it seems too like simplistic and trite to say that, like, this is a team that hasn't been a cap team for like 15 years and are now suddenly experiencing the woes of being up against the upper end of the cap. So like, I kind of want to give Dorian the credit that, like, that's not the reason, because if it is, that's just like unprofessional. But there's clearly some poor planning went into this, no matter what it was, whether they're banking on other contracts coming off the books, you know, wink, wink, release the NHL report on the Hockey Canada situation, or, you know, or what, we don't know, but it's a bad look. And all that just to say, my very last point before I wrap this up, I mentioned off the top that it would not be the worst thing in the world if we just traded Pinto for assets and that makes the problem go away, because Greg has been playing really well in that 3C position. And I think I'm very high on Ridley Gregg, and I would not be mad at all if they gave him that spot permanently or semi-permanently and let Pinto walk if it looks like his contract demands are not going to fit within the team. I would not hate that. But the problem is that like it shouldn't have come to this point. We should have been able to keep them both, and we should not have been in this situation.
Yeah, I think the one point I'll make on that is I think it would be short-sighted. Like it would be another error to then trade Shane Pinto. I think a lot of people have been circulating the idea of trading Kubalik because he's an expiring free agent type player anyway. In the summer, he mentioned that he was looking for, like a 4-year, $4 million kind of deal going into free agency next summer. So I think with him, like trying to shed that contract and get Pinto signed, because each day he goes and signed, his projected cap hit gets a little bit higher because, there's less games. So it's prorated to how many games he's actually playing. So
and if I may very quickly just mention about Kubalik, because it's too good to not give a shout out to Capital Gains on Twitter, who said something along the lines of, we see that DeBrincat has arrived in Detroit, but when is Kubalik going to get to Ottawa? Because I haven't seen him yet. It sums up his contributions so far this season, which have been absolutely zilch.
I think, there was like one power play, I believe, that he was like the tertiary assist, if you want to, count that, where he like went in on the forecheck, caused a turnover, and passed it to the guy who passed it to the guy who passed it to the goal scorer. So it's like, he's there's some plays that he's doing that are the right plays, but then he's just not getting on the score sheet. So, hey, I hope for his sake, he's able to get some points. And I think the Sens are going to have to make a tough decision, and we'll see what Dorion and Steos and Bonus come to conclusion-wise on this situation. But I'll throw it over to Matt before our little ad break here and get his thoughts on Shane Pinto, on the current sitch.
I mean, you have to sign the guy. It would be ridiculous not to sign a rookie center who scored 20 goals last year to a contract that is completely reasonable. And like, if the ask of what it is out there, I think it's 2.5. If that's the ask of a rookie center who scored 20 goals, that is under market value. Yeah. I just want to put that out there as well. This is not Shane Pinto is asking for too much. This is Pierre Dorion put too much money into this team that was needless. And like the two guys that needed to get done this summer, I mean, when you one of them being Jake Sanderson, that is going to go down as one of the most important contracts on this team. But the next one, like as an Eric Brandstrom fan, I love the guy. But Shane Pinto should have been signed before Brandstrom. Pinto is more important to this team than Brandstrom is. And when it comes down to it, you signed way too many guys ahead of Shane Pinto. And to suggest that the way we get out of this situation is signing or is trading away a rookie center who looked good last year, who played on our PK, who played in clutch situations, because you can't find room.
Yeah.
Dominic Kubalik is a winger on an expiring contract at $2.5 million. You're telling me that nobody in the league wants that guy for even nothing. Like you,
like a fourth-round pick or something. Like
even you giving him away is valuable to this team.
If it means you get Pinto.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because then suddenly your third line gets even better because you're adding Shane Pinto, and Ridley Gregg can either stay as a center or he can play the wing, and your roster gets better because let's be real right now. Kubalik is not showing up. He's not playing well. And like, he's not being rewarded in a scenario that he's not doing anything to be rewarded. He's not playing well. And there are teams that kind of need a guy like him. Seattle and Nashville both immediately ran into injury problems and could use a guy like him. He's low cost, and he can do what you need to do, especially considering he's a guy that thrives in top 6 minutes because he puts up points with better players. Now, this is not to say he's been playing with Josh Norris and Drake Batherson. So if he can't figure it out with them, like it's more on him than anything else. But to suggest that if all you needed to do to sweeten a Matthew Joseph trade was to trade Tyler Boucher, or if it was just to give away Dominic Kubalik for a 6th-round pick, this should have been done like yesterday. It should have been done before the start of the season. But if it's coming to trading Shane Pinto, like the GM needs to lose his job personally.
Especially because it's the situation Tyler was not making.
Yep.
So after the break, we'll discuss Zub missing time to injury and JBD's recall, and then we'll also talk about Craig Anderson and discussing him retiring as an Ottawa Senator. Sens fans, the NFL season is going strong, and DraftKings Sportsbook is hooking new customers up with an offer that's even stronger. Bet $5 on any game this week to score $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every game day this October. Coming up this weekend, my Seattle Seahawks are taking on those damn Cleveland Browns. And it looks like Seahawks are actually the favorite here at -162 on the money line. So get in on the game day greatness. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet $5 on the NFL. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. Licensee partner, Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, LA. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Welcome back, everyone. Before we move on to our next segment, we just want to thank you for watching or listening to our show so far. Please consider subscribing if you're enjoying it. And as you can see on screen here, if you're watching, you can find all our social medias on there. And please consider going and following us. There you go, Bennett.
Or maybe the side. I don't know.
Great job. You're doing so well. All right. So let's talk about Zub being injured. Initially, they thought it was maybe just one game. It looks like he'll be missing a second game in a row. Day to day, he got a puck in the face. So it's interesting. JBD got recalled back in the summer, spring. Dorian had said that the 6th D spot was JBD's to lose. He indeed lost it.
He lost it.
But he's back up through his first game. I know Corsi's kind of on its way out here as an advanced analytic, but he actually got like a 71% Corsi 4. So advanced analytic wise, it seems like he had a good him and his line mates had a good possession game, but obviously there were a couple moments where I thought he looked a bit shaky, but other moments where I thought he looked pretty decent, definitely better than the preseason. So I'm just going to quickly roundtable it here and get your thoughts, and I'll throw it over to Matt first.
I think losing Zub is tough. We should have a D that can kind of work itself out. As I said, didn't really love that all the lineup got jumbled just because one guy went out. Just plug JBD where the guy went out. I'd like to see JBD take a step, but it's kind of hard when it just doesn't seem like he can do it. And that's unfortunate because he's a first round pick and this, that, and the other thing. But this is the situation we're in, and you just hope Zub comes back by the end of the week.
Ben, how are you feeling on the Zub injury / JBD being called up?
Yeah, I mean, I was waxing, poetic about our blue line before and how amazing it is to have so much talent there. We were hoping that we were past the days of Zub's annual injury derailing our defensive core, and yet it looked almost a little bit that way on Saturday's game. But it's a short-term injury. He's not going to be out for very long. It's a superficial kind of like you said, puck to the face. Sucks for the guy. That obviously hurts. I would not want to experience that. But it's not like a muscular or like a bone injury or something. Like, he'll be back pretty quickly and we won't need to worry too much about it.
Cool. Well, let's get to the final topic and the fun one to talk about, and that's Craig Anderson, who's being honored against the Buffalo Sabres when Ottawa plays them on Tuesday night, and he'll be retiring an Ottawa Senators. That's really cool news. But the main question that I'm posing to each of you guys is, does he get just Ring of Honor mentions, or do you think he's worthwhile enough to actually retire his number? So I'll give this one to Bennett first. And where do you sit on this debate that I've been seeing floating around Sen's universe of online landscapes? That's what I'm going with. Go with it, roll with it, go.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge something off the top here, is that Craig Anderson is undisputably the Senators' best ever goaltender. Like, that is not up for debate here. I will say that is a low bar, but it is a bar and he has cleared it. And he played for the team for 10 years, I think, off the top of my head. Used to have a mediocre season for Craig Anderson would have been, like life sucker to us in the last few years when our goalies have been like Matt Murray and like 15 games of Forsberg here and there. So like we could have done with a couple of bad quote unquote Craig Anderson seasons the last couple of years. So he is undoubtedly our best goalie. He took us to an Eastern Conference final, looked comfortable while doing it. There's a couple of things about this that I find odd. He played for a number of different teams in his career. He played for Colorado, he played for Buffalo at the end of his career. He is in fact currently employed by the Buffalo Sabres, which I think makes it kind of extra weird that he's choosing to retire as a Senator. I mean, I'm not knocking the position if him and his family felt that connection and the team did. Great, cool, good for them. Just a little odd. And when Alfredson played his whole entire career here and then came back and after one season elsewhere to retire, makes complete sense. Anderson kind of played all over, so a little odd. Do I think he deserves Ring of Honor? Absolutely. He, like I said, our franchise goaltender. We hope one day somebody will surpass him, but for now he's it, and he deserves to be there. Does his jersey deserve to be retired? No. I think it would. Frankly, I think he had longevity, but not like the kind of longevity that you'd really want, or the highs you'd really want to see for someone to end up on the rafters. Frankly, I think it would look a little desperate on the team's part. We already have Neil and Phillips, guys that I personally feel do not deserve to be up there for their on-ice performances. And I think having Anderson up there would be kind of trite. And I hope we don't. I hope we give him the jacket and the Ring of Honor and just say thank you for your services.
All right, Matt, where do you lay on this line of debate here?
Jersey retirement, probably not, but Ring of Honor, skibbity bop bop, skibbity yes. He deserves to be there. And he's one of the best goalies that Ottawa has ever had. He is the best goalie that Ottawa's ever had, aside from Dominic Hasek, because the Dominator was the Dominator. But in this sense, he gave everything to Ottawa. And Bennett, he also played for Florida and Chicago and Washington.
I forgot about that. He's been a journeyman.
He has, but the thing about Anderson was he really hit his stride as a starting goalie in Colorado, and then became the starting goalie for the Sens for like 10 years, and then was kind of just a backup everywhere else he went. So I think it's kind of the Fleury effect. Like, he's going to retire as a Penguin for sure, but this is why Craig Anderson, the most dominant goalie in Sens franchise history, and one of the most clutch playoff performers as a goalie in the modern era. If you go look at his playoff goalie stats,
Oh, I'll get
it's
to that.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I absolutely think, but the bar for retiring Sens jerseys is a little low. So I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no.
All right, so to finish off the roundtable here, I was gonna, basically touch on the fact that he may not have been talent-wise the best goalie that Ottawa ever had, but longevity, reliability, all that stuff. Craig Anderson was right there. And yeah, through the regular season, 10 years with the Sens, he had a 914 save percentage, which doesn't blow you out of the water. But considering the fact that 914 is like above league average, like he was just a steady above league average guy for the Sens for his basically all of his career until they decided to part ways when he became a free agent. So that was really cool. And then in the playoffs, like, let's not forget, Craig Anderson had to go against some top-notch goaltenders. 2 series against Carey Price, both of which he was phenomenal. So you look at his stats there. Also, in that 2017 run, playing against guys like Tuukka Rask and Henrik Lundqvist. And yes, Marc-Andre Fleury ended up getting pulled from that Penguin series early. But even against Matt Murray, like, it took 7 games, right? And so he was unbelievable. You look at his playoff stats, he jumps from a 914 in the regular season to a 928 through his playoff career with Ottawa. And even the other 2 playoffs that he had with other teams, he was right around the 930 mark. So, I think if I'm going to finish off this thing, I'd say Ring of Honor for sure, but I'm not completely saying no to a jersey retirement for the sole reason that you guys brought up Chris Neil, who, hey, I love Chris Neil and Chris Phillips. Like, as Sens alumni, the nostalgia, yeah, I get it. Chris Phillips played the most games for the franchise, and Chris Neil was the heart and soul guy for the team. But if you retire their numbers, I think there's at least an argument to be made, especially with the attachment of the Anderson family to the city. I think fans thought of him as more than just a player on the team, but a guy who is a member of the community and what he stood for and all he went through, and the city, like, having them behind him when his wife was going through cancer and all that. I think that was huge. So that's how I'm going to finish off the show. Thank you for your support, everyone, and go Sens go.